They're not ignoring you by accident. What you're experiencing right now, the sudden coldness, the withdrawn attention, the way they've become unreachable, this isn't emotional distance. This is a calculated psychological weapon being deployed against you with surgical precision. Silent punishment is the most devastating form of social control because it weaponizes your own mind against you. While you're sitting there wondering what you did wrong, analyzing every conversation, replaying every interaction, they're watching you slowly dismantle yourself from the inside out. You think this is about communication breakdown. You think this is about them needing space. You think this is about misunderstanding. You're wrong. This is about power, and right now you're losing it in ways you don't even recognize. The person deploying silent punishment against you understands something most people never learn. The human brain cannot tolerate social uncertainty. We are wired for connection, programmed for belonging, and when that connection is suddenly severed without explanation, our nervous system interprets it as a survival threat. They know this. They're counting on it. While you're desperately trying to figure out what went wrong, they're systematically conditioning you to accept less, expect less, and blame yourself more. Every hour you spend in confusion is an hour they spend consolidating control over the dynamic between you. This isn't happening in your romantic relationship alone. Silent punishment operates in every context where power can be leveraged: your workplace, your family, your friendships, your professional networks. The person who suddenly stops responding to your emails isn't overwhelmed. The colleague who's become mysteriously unavailable isn't busy. The friend who's gone radio silent after that conversation isn't processing. They're training you. Here's what most people miss about silent punishment: it's not emotional, it's strategic. The person wielding it has made a calculated decision that your discomfort serves their interests. Your confusion is their clarity. Your desperation is their leverage. You're probably thinking about reaching out again right now. You're considering sending another text, making another call, showing up somewhere you know they'll be. You're wondering if you should apologize for something you can't even identify. This is exactly the mental state they're engineering. Silent punishment works because it exploits a fundamental asymmetry in human psychology. The person being ignored experiences escalating anxiety, self-doubt, and desperation. The person doing the ignoring experiences increasing control, validation, and power. Every day this continues, the gap widens. But here's what they don't want you to understand. Silent punishment only works if you participate in your own psychological destruction. The moment you recognize what's happening, the weapon loses its power. The moment you stop trying to decode their silence and start recognizing it as manipulation, the dynamic shifts. The moment you refuse to chase, beg, or self-destruct over their withdrawal, you reclaim your psychological autonomy. Most people never reach this moment of recognition. They stay trapped in the confusion, convinced that if they just try harder, communicate better, or apologize more sincerely, the silence will end. They don't realize they're feeding the very system that's destroying them. The person using silent punishment against you has studied your patterns. They know exactly how long it takes for you to break. They know which buttons to push to make you doubt yourself. They know how to time their withdrawal for maximum psychological impact. They've probably done this before, to other people, in other relationships, in other contexts. You're not special. You're not the exception. You're the current target of a practiced manipulation technique. This realization should terrify you, but it should also liberate you. Because once you understand that their silence is a choice, not a circumstance, everything changes. Once you recognize that their withdrawal is strategic, not emotional, you stop taking it personally. Once you see that their unavailability is calculated, not coincidental, you stop trying to solve a problem that was never meant to be solved. Silent punishment is designed to make you smaller. It's engineered to make you more compliant, more grateful for scraps of attention, more willing to accept unacceptable behavior. It conditions you to walk on eggshells, to monitor your every word, to constantly seek approval from someone who's withholding it as a form of control. The most insidious part? It makes you complicit in your own diminishment. While they're silent, you're doing all the work of destroying your self-worth. They don't have to say a word. They don't have to lift a finger. They just have to wait while you tear yourself apart trying to understand what you did wrong. But you didn't do anything wrong. That's the point. Silent punishment isn't about your behavior. It's about their need for control. It's not about what you said or didn't say, it's about what they want you to feel. Right now, someone in your life is using your own psychology against you. They're leveraging your need for connection to maintain power over you. They're exploiting your capacity for self reflection to make you question everything about yourself. And the most dangerous part, you're probably defending them. You're probably making excuses for their behavior. You're probably telling yourself they're just busy or stressed or going through something difficult. You're probably taking responsibility for their choice to withdraw. This is how silent punishment becomes a prison. Not just because they're withholding communication, but because you're withholding truth from yourself. The person doing this to you isn't confused about your relationship. They're not overwhelmed by their feelings. They're not struggling to find the right words. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it because it works. Every time you've accepted silent punishment in the past, you've taught them that this strategy is effective. Every time you've chased someone who was withdrawing, you've reinforced their belief that they can control you through absence. Every time you've apologized for something you didn't do to end the silence, you've given them permission to do it again. This pattern doesn't end until you stop participating in it. But here's what nobody tells you about breaking free from silent punishment. The moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop trying to fix what they broke, the moment you stop accepting responsibility for their choices, that's when you discover who they really are. Because someone who uses silent punishment as a weapon will escalate when that weapon stops working. They'll try new tactics. They'll attempt different forms of manipulation. They'll reveal the extent of their need for control over you. And that revelation will show you something you need to see. This was never about love, respect, or genuine connection. This was always about power. The silence you're experiencing right now isn't the absence of communication. It's the presence of manipulation. It's not empty space. It's occupied territory. It's not nothing happening. It's something very specific happening. They're conditioning you to accept less while being grateful for scraps. They're training you to question yourself instead of questioning them. They're teaching you that your peace of mind is contingent on their approval. But what if you stopped learning that lesson? What if you recognize that someone who punishes you with silence is someone who sees your emotional well-being as a tool to be weaponized? What if you understood that genuine care doesn't express itself through calculated withdrawal? What if you realize that the person who's silent isn't the person you thought they were? The most terrifying part of silent punishment isn't the silence itself. It's what the silence reveals about the person choosing to be silent. It's the glimpse behind the mask. It's the moment you realize that someone you trusted has been systematically undermining your psychological stability for their own benefit. And once you see that, you can never unsee it. But here's what they're counting on. They're betting that you'll never reach that moment of clarity. They're gambling that you'll stay trapped in confusion, self-doubt, and desperation. They're wagering that you'll keep trying to solve a puzzle that was designed to be unsolvable. Because the moment you stop trying to solve it, the moment you step back and see the bigger picture, the moment you recognize silent punishment for what it really is, that's the moment their power over you ends. And that's the moment they fear most. Silent punishment operates on a timeline. It's not random. It's not spontaneous. It follows a predictable pattern that's designed to maximize your psychological distress while minimizing their effort. First, there's the setup. Something happens. A conversation, a disagreement, a moment where you didn't respond the way they wanted. This becomes their justification for what comes next, even though the punishment never fits the supposed crime. Then comes the withdrawal. Sudden, complete, and without explanation. They don't tell you they're upset. They don't express their concerns. They don't attempt to resolve whatever issue they claim exists. They simply vanish from your emotional landscape. Next is the waiting period. This is where they watch you struggle. They observe your attempts to reach out, your growing confusion, your increasing desperation. They're not absent. They're present and watching. They're not unavailable. They're strategically unresponsive. During this phase, they're often living their lives normally, posting on social media, interacting with others, going about their routine. The silence is specifically for you. The withdrawal is targeted. The punishment is personal. Then comes the intermittent reinforcement. Just when you're about to give up, they throw you a crumb. A brief response, a moment of normal interaction, just enough to reset your hope and restart the cycle. This isn't kindness, it's psychological conditioning. Finally, there's the return. When they decide they've extracted enough suffering, they reappear as if nothing happened. They don't acknowledge the silence. They don't explain their absence. They don't apologize for the pain they've caused. They simply resume interaction and expect you to be grateful for their return. This cycle repeats because it works. Each time you accept this pattern, you're teaching them that silent punishment is an effective way to control your behavior, your emotions, and your choices. But here's what you need to understand about people who use silent punishment. They're not just manipulating you in the moment, they're conditioning you for long-term compliance. Every time you chase them during their withdrawal, you're learning that your worth is contingent on their attention. Every time you apologize for things you didn't do to end their silence, you're learning that you're responsible for their emotional choices. Every time you accept their return without acknowledgement of their behavior, you're learning that your feelings don't matter. This conditioning doesn't stay contained to one relationship. It affects how you show up in every relationship. It changes your expectations for how you should be treated. It alters your understanding of what normal communication looks like. People who have been subjected to repeated silent punishment often develop hypervigilance around other people's moods. They become experts at reading micro-expressions, analyzing tone changes, and detecting the slightest shift in someone's energy. They live in a constant state of alert, always scanning for signs that they might be about to lose someone's approval. This hypervigilance feels like emotional intelligence, but it's actually trauma response. It feels like being caring and attentive, but it's actually being controlled by fear. It feels like being a good partner, friend, or colleague, but it's actually being a well-trained victim. The person who uses silent punishment against you understands this conditioning process. They know that each cycle makes you more compliant, more grateful for basic respect, more willing to accept unacceptable behavior. They've learned that they don't need to be consistently cruel to maintain control. They just need to be unpredictably absent. They don't need to constantly criticize you. They just need to occasionally withdraw their approval. They don't need to actively harm you. They just need to threaten the withdrawal of their presence. This is why silent punishment is so effective and so devastating. It turns your own attachment system against you. It weaponizes your capacity for love, connection, and loyalty. It makes your greatest strengths into your greatest vulnerabilities. But here's what they don't want you to realize. The power of silent punishment depends entirely on your participation. It requires your chase. It needs your desperation. It feeds on your self-doubt. The moment you stop participating, the entire system collapses. The moment you recognize that someone's silence is information about them, not about you, everything changes. The moment you understand that withdrawal is a choice, not a circumstance, you stop taking it personally. The moment you see that silent punishment is manipulation, not communication, you stop trying to solve it. And that's when you discover something profound. You don't need their approval to have worth. You don't need their attention to have value. You don't need their presence to have peace. The silence that once felt like abandonment starts to feel like freedom. The space that once felt empty starts to feel spacious. The absence that once felt like punishment starts to feel like protection, because when someone removes themselves from your life as a form of control, they're actually removing a source of instability, unpredictability, and psychological harm. The question isn't whether you can survive their silence. The question is whether you can survive the truth about why they're choosing to be silent. Because once you understand that truth, everything else becomes clear, including what you need to do next. The silence isn't the problem. Your response to the silence is where your power lies. What are you going to do with that power?